The important thing to understand about this is if you make $10 an hour with inflation, with this mass printing of money, we've effectively just lowered the minimum wage, basically, in terms of buying power. Mm-hmm. Of course, everybody's value is stripped, even the business owners. Another way to look at it is, let's say you worked for 50 years or, 40 some odd years, you finally retired and you got a couple $100,000 in your retirement account. Well, you're not going to make more. That's your money. That's your budget for the rest of your life. And then they mass print trillions of dollars, devaluing that currency. All of a sudden, your retirement account is worth half of what it was, no longer enough to actually retire on. What do? I guess a lot of people are going to become dependent on the government to keep printing money for them because the money they have is no longer sound enough to actually buy things. So then you get people who work at Walmart because Walmart gets special kickbacks from government. Walmart then pays their employees trash. Their employees then have to get government benefits, and around we go.
But the government's not even printing it. It's the Federal Reserve, a private company, is printing it for us. So, and then we give them notes of like, we promise to give you the money back, right? Mm-hmm. That's what these are.
Yep.
If we were to default on that and say, you know what, Federal Reserve, we can't, we're not, what would happen?
Well, the whole system breaks at that point in time.
The whole world
breaks.
Yeah, the petrodollar.
So it's not just we, the people, who are on the hook for those treasury notes, right? So we owe a bunch of those to China. China holds $1.3 trillion of them. There's about $7 trillion of U.S. obligations out there in the world. It's a big number. A trillion a big number.
And this is the crazy thing. What that really means, and correct me if I'm wrong, that China has guaranteed access to U.S. labor, right? That's ultimately what the money would get them. Something produced or a service provided by an American, they're getting. So it's effectively like when the U.S. borrows money from China to pay back with interest, they're saying what we're going to give you assures that the people in our country will work for you in some capacity.
Is that the Chinese central bank that we owe?
Yes, that's who's nominally
holding it. So it's the Chinese version of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah,
which
the
is
People's
the Bank of China.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Bank of, so are you familiar with the Bank of International Settlements?
Mm-hmm.
The bank, so that's like the mother central bank where all the other central banks funnel their money through. I would imagine that the Bank of China and the Federal Reserve are connected through the Bank for International Settlements.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's useful really to think about different countries when you get to the banking or cartels. They're really a tribe. They hang out together, and I'm not really clear what the difference is between all the member banks at the BIS, because I don't know that they have sovereign interests when they talk about this stuff.
But is it really like how you just explained? They do things on paper to make it seem like it's legitimate, when in reality they just control whether you get access to resources or not?
Yeah. So I give a lot of talks, right? And I've been in front of, I'm guessing, 10,000 different audience members at this point in time. And I always ask this one question. I say, particularly U.S. audiences, I say, how many of you ever learned about how money is created in the system?
I watched Zeitgeist.
I've had 2 hands go up that whole time, like taught in school, right? One was at a crazy Marxist professor at UMass, another was at Oberlin economics professor, again, a nut. But you can teach this to 5th graders, and I know because I have. And once you teach people how money is created in the system, because this whole idea that the Federal Reserve has money, no, they don't. They just literally click on a keyboard, and it's created in that moment.
It's digital, isn't it?
Yes.
It's
all digital. Not even paper. Not even that. Like when you go and borrow money from a bank, people thinking like Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life, and you go down and your savings are in my mortgage. It's not like that at all. When I go to a bank and I take out a mortgage, they click on keyboards again. And when I borrow, say, $400,000 to buy a house, that's when it got created. That's when the $400,000 came into being.
Yep. Now, here's the easiest way I break down to people why it's a problem. Because I've got a bunch of these, lefty friends who are like, we need this $2,000 stimulus bill. And I'm like, I hear you. You do. I get it. You're going to get evicted. Your job has been taken away from you. But I think the real issue is that they've taken away your ability to provide for yourself. Mm-hmm. So I try to explain to them why it's a problem. We're printing all this money. And I'll put it very simply. There's 5 of us here in this room. Imagine there was $1 between the 5 of us. And I'd give it to Luke, and then Luke would trade it to Ian, and Ian would trade it. And that's how the economy functioned. Now imagine one day I show up and I start drawing on a piece of paper dollars. I'm doing no work. I'm trading nothing for anybody. And I'm convincing all of you to give me your stuff because I drew a picture. That's basically what's happening. Yeah. We're all, as working people, doing something in exchange for a good so that we can provide for each other resources. And then the government basically comes in and says, ooh, I did work. Here's my money too. And we go, oh, thank you, government. But they didn't. They just drew it on a piece of paper. Or they typed it on a keyboard and pressed enter. Yeah. And we're giving away our stuff to people who aren't working for us or with us or trading with us.
So we're using their money pictures and the payment for that is we got to give them interest for it.
And what is interest in this story, do you think? What does that
a
represent?
Percentage of the picture. Like 1 for every 100.
So to me, if you're the bank and you loan me that $400,000 mortgage and I pay it back to you, that money was created and it's given back. But where did the interest come from in this story? What does that represent? Well, what it represents is my labor over time. So over the next 30 years, if I have a mortgage, I borrowed $400, I might pay $800 back depending on the rate of interest. Where did that $400,000 come from? Well, it came from my hard work. But when you created that $400,000, what'd you do? You went clickety, clickety, click. Yep. That was the total work in that story. But me, I'm doing 30 more years in a garage and as a bus driver, as a whatever, right? So that's why it's never taught in school. Because once you learn that, you go, that doesn't feel right.
It's one big Ponzi scheme with these individuals providing absolutely no value at all. Banking, Wall Street, they're the only industry that literally is the only people that don't actually produce something of a service, don't actually produce a good. They just literally make it out of thin air by pressing buttons on a
That's
computer.
absolutely wrong, Luke. You are wrong.
Uh-huh.
They provide excellent source material for movies like The Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay.
That was a great movie.
It was awesome. It was awesome. With Matthew McConaughey and he's pounding on his chest. That was awesome. See, if it wasn't for these guys, would we be entertained?
They used to execute bankers for charging interest. They called it usury. Usury. It was a capital crime to commit usury, which was to charge interest on the loan.
But you know,
when did that change?
Look, honestly, I think
1700s, 1800s, or something.
I personally have no issue if I've got $10 and I say, okay, I can front you the money now, but I want back $11. I mean, if I'm actually giving you and taking that risk,
giving a flat interest rate is different than a compounding interest rate. Saying I want that back plus 10% is different than saying plus 1% every month until you pay me back.
Well, look, if I think if someone enters into a contract, it's their choice. If I have money, if I say, Luke, I'm going to lend you this, half bottle of water, but you got to give me a full bottle of water when, in a month or so, I think I'm fine with that. The problem is when I'm like, okay, I'm not actually going to give you any real water. I'm going to spit in a bottle, call it water, and then you got to give me a full bottle of water back.
Yeah, but even with the spitting, what you're doing there is you're actually doing something.
Right?
So,
Right. Even spitting is work.
So you're doing something. That's the difference here. And so the idea of like if I earn $10 because of my hard labor and then I decide to loan 10 to Luke and he's going to pay me back 11, that's a different story from saying I'm going to create 10 out of thin air and then insist that you give it all back plus some VIG, whatever the particularly compounding interest, right? So that's the game. And by the way, that game is going to unravel in everybody's lifetime here. Mine, yours, everybody. This is the story that's coming apart because it made a lot of sense in a time when you could just continue to grow exponentially forever. That's what we've been doing on this planet. And our money system is no different. It's just compounding, more and more and more debt. Now it's kind of on that steep phase. You look at pull up a chart of like U.S. government debt. It is frightening.
I've got St. Louis Fed.org's economic research money stock. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
It just goes up and then look at this. Yep. In 2020, it goes from, you can see, beginning of the year, it just skyrockets. Billions of dollars jumps from 4,000 to 7,000. So it's like
4 trillion to 7 trillion, right?
Yeah.
But that increase, that's a 66% increase in 12 months. So all the money used in this country
66%
in 1 year.
Because the last time we talked about it was at 35.
No.
Yeah,
now they're printing more.
There's more. This is M1 you're looking at probably,
Right.
which is
M1.
demand. That's checking, savings plus currency, right? But think about that. Every dollar created in our country was about 800 billion up till before the first great financial crisis, right? Every bridge, every war fought, every school, everything took 800 billion of money stock creation. Then they doubled that in about a year. Mm-hmm. And that model has just been going, and you can feel it. It's getting faster and faster. So for all your listeners out there, just ask yourself, does it feel like it's just speeding up?
Yup.
Because it actually is.
Well, so Bitcoin.
I mean, those charts look similar to the Bitcoin charts, especially in their value.
No. So I have a phone with it has a Bitcoin wallet on it, and it's an old phone. So I just was like, at one point, I was like, whatever, just put it in a box and forgot about it. And then I'm following Max Kaiser on Twitter. You guys know Max. You know Max, right?
Yep.
Orange Pill Podcast, and he's got this really funny meme where he says, "Have fun staying poor." Have you seen that? People who keep telling him Bitcoin was like, don't buy Bitcoin, it's crazy, it doesn't make sense. It's him sitting in a chair, like looking at the camera, says, "Have fun staying poor." And so I'm seeing him post these things, and then all of a sudden I'm like, people saying Bitcoin broke its all-time high, and I'm like, where's that phone at? And I'm like trying to figure out where it is, and it's dead, and I got to plug it in to see like what's still on it, because it's $28,000. for one coin. A couple of years ago.
Well, this is the thing.
$3,000.
People are looking for alternatives to the dollar. People are looking to get out of this thing that, of course, people are just printing like crazy. And that's why we're seeing, I think, in one instance, why cryptocurrencies are doing so well right now, because of this incredible amount of money printing that's happening right now.
Let me tell you. I think crypto is not the right call. I think gold is not the right call. If there's one thing you got to buy, it's Primal Youth by Dr. Jones. Spinning here. I'm kidding.
Infowars.com.
No. Water. Access to water. Watching that video of these people storm through this supermarket because of the lockdowns, and they're like, we want food. We want to shop. You can have all the Bitcoin in the world. When an angry mob is hungry, they're not going to stop to ask you for your private, or for your public key or whatever to do an exchange. They're gonna punch you in the face and take your sandwich from you.
Of course, that's why I bought ammo, heirloom seeds, a lot of medicine that we can't even mention on this show right now. Being prepared and having personal responsibility is the absolute key. And when you're paying attention, when you know big companies like Citadel and BlackRock, and you see the revolving door, you see the game that's being played on the American people, and you see the writing on the wall. It's there, and it's becoming way more and more evident. And when the people who are rioting are going to find out about the exact details, I don't know. Oh boy, I don't know what's going to happen.
Do you guys see this video out of New York where the kids are smashing the SUV?
Yeah.
Throwing their bikes at it. One kid, runs up, jumps, and then drop kicks the windshield. It was a medical SUV apparently. New York is, look, it's a waste. I'm going to call it a wasteland because I'm being hyperbolic. But let me tell you something. What people don't understand about extreme circumstances is that you're a frog in a pot with the water level, the heat slowly rising until the water boils and you don't realize it. Think about what you were doing in New York a couple of years ago compared to what you can do in New York now, and you might be like, oh, that's kind of crazy. Can't do any of that anymore. When was the last time you saw a story about a mob of people breaking into a supermarket? New York City there's street races at night now. I'm seeing these videos of people just speeding through the empty streets. Yeah, crazy. And then driving around Manhattan because it's a wasteland. And I look, obviously it's not a desolate, a post-apocalyptic Fallout, style, junkyard or whatever.
Yeah.
There's people walking around living their normal lives, but in many ways it's a fraction of what it used to be, to the point where these kids can ride around with their bikes, smash windows, and just there's nothing anyone can do about it.
But that's happening now. What's going to happen when the value of the dollar goes even lower?
Well,
when there's a whole bunch of unprepared people that don't have resources, that don't know what to do, that don't have a plan, are stuck without any of the important things coming in.
And this is what I'm saying. If right now in New York, teenagers on bikes can just attack an SUV and you get away with it, and we see people just driving around Manhattan, it's lawlessness. What do you think happens if the police can't handle what's going on right now, ruffian teenagers smashing a car? How do you think they're going to handle pockets of 50 to 100 people in different parts of the city smashing their way into supermarkets screaming, we want to shop, we need food? The cops are going to go, oh, can't do anything about it, sorry. If they can't handle this now, you do not want to be in a city like that. I can't believe there are people who are staying there too.
And they didn't handle it. They didn't handle it during the summer of this year, during the Black Lives Matter protest, when they were just standing around, not doing anything, having their little protest against actually doing their job. So when it came to when the people needed them the most, when there was rioting, when there was looting, when there was actual violence in the street, they literally just stood back and watched everything happen.
Yeah, they did nothing. So I think we're getting dangerously close to that point where, I was talking to my lefty friends, trying to explain to them the problem of mass printing. What they nearly doubled the money supply, or a 66% increase? That's crazy. And, we did a segment about it, and we got a ton of views on it because people are like, they're seeing that spike in the money stock, and they're like, what does that mean? That looks scary. Like, because you have all of this 200 years of slow and steady increase, and then boom, straight up. Yeah, but just wrap up my point real quick. Talking to my lefty friend, I bring this up and I'm like, what does that mean for you? I don't know, $20 for a gallon of milk, $15 for a gallon of gas. At some point, right? If the money stock has just doubled, the inflation's coming soon. Read your history, man. Read about all these countries where the hyperinflation happened and the mass printing of money resulted in people shoveling bills into the dumpster. What you were saying.
So I agree with all of that. And this problem definition that we're up against. I mean, it's so first up, that chart, seeing the M1, the money supply just spike. Listen, keep a journal. I mean, this is crazy times. Right? I mean, this is the hard part. I want to shake people by the lapels. I want to slap them, airplane style. Wake up. Because this is insane what's happening right now. It's literally insane. And if you can't decode the signals, so this is an easy signal, 66% increase in the money supply. Trust me, we're going to get people like, well, when's this inflation going to show up? I'm like, it's already here, but the inflation goes where the money goes. So they printed all that money and they mostly gave it to rich people. So what do rich people like? They like jewels, art, yachts, Gulf Streams, trophy properties, stocks, and bonds. All of those are through the roof right now.
Yep.
We're seeing all that, the pricing on that, if you can even find a lot of this stuff. So you held up water. This is what my company, this is a company t-shirt. We're all about resilience. And so the problem definition side is like, yeah, this stuff is happening. How much convincing do you need? Once you're past convincing, what do you do about it?
Yeah. You know,
that's what we need to be talking about. Is like, what do you do about this? Because already where I live in Western Mass, all the properties got snapped up. Just a fraction of a percent of people leaving New York and Boston said that was enough to kill our real estate market.
Yep.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.